On this week's episode of Hip Hop Now podcast, Cardi B is Tupac?
Let's get right to business. Read these headlines. This album must be gone. This album must be gone. Come to Hip Hop Podcast.
What up, y'all? I am your host, Vegas, and this is Hip Hop Now Podcast Extra, a podcast designed to catch you up on all things hip hop, music, and culture that happen throughout the week. But when we do the extra show, we focus in on one topic at hand. First and foremost, I want to shout out djbooth.com, where I'm getting some information from. Shout out to Twitter. Why not? They're going to get some information from them. But most importantly, shout out to you, the listener, the person who comes back and listens to the podcast and subscribes and shares it with people. Keep that going. Big shout out to you new listeners who are tuning in, enjoying the podcast feed and everything that's there. And also know on this audio feed, there is also another podcast available called That Time in Hip Hop. It's a podcast I do with the homie Tone from IntoTheDome.com. That's ENTERDADOME.com. We basically talk hip hop culture, whether that be events that happen in hip hop, albums that dropped. That time in hip hop, man. It's a time to reminisce, but it's also a time to get some context, some perspective, some opinions, all that good stuff on things that happen in hip hop history. And no, it's not just a 90s thing. We're going to be doing albums and events and different things from all eras and genre. And the first episode, we had a pilot episode, which you could check out. That was about Raekwon's Only Built for Cuban Links. But our first episode, the first official joint, is about when the Source magazine in November the issue from November 1998 gave Outkast's Aquemini 5 mics and Jay-Z's Hard Knock Life Volume 2 4.5 mics. So if you want to learn a little bit of the backstory on that, hear my opinion, hear Tone's opinion, check out That Time in Hip Hop. It is available on this feed. But it's all coming from the hub, which is soundcloud.com/hiphopnowpodcast. Now, you heard the intro to the show, right? You heard that. Earlier in this week, if you're from the future, get out of here. But it's difficult to say this. The president of TDE, Top Dog Entertainment, his name is Punch. He tweeted that Cardi B is Tupac, right? And obviously the internet went crazy. Hip hop blogs, quoted it and all that. And DJ Booth, you can go to djbooth.com. He did basically he was like a guest editor or something like that. So he did a column as to why he said it, because he didn't give a reason on his Twitter as to why he said Cardi B is Tupac. He just kind of said it, and then everybody went crazy, and now he has a column. And I read his column and how he broke it down, but I have to respectfully disagree. Now, let me just get this out the way. I am not a hater of Cardi B. I actually like Bodak Yellow. I actually heard one or two songs I actually like off this new album. I just can't see myself listening to an entire album of that voice, right? Now, for the songs I like them. You know what I'm saying? Because it's just songs, 1, 2 here and there. It's, throw it up in a playlist. It goes, it rocks, right? But for me to listen to a whole album, that's like me asking Cardi B to tell me what happened on the last night's episode of Game of Thrones. I mean, the minute Khaleesi, the minute she go there, I'm just like, nah, I'm good. I'm gonna watch it. You know what I'm saying? But generally, I have no problem with Cardi B as a rapper. She's just not my speed. I get why a lot of people are riding for her. You know what I'm saying? Based off of her real story. But as a rapper, I already knew about Cardi B when she was making much whacker music. I mean, some really whack stuff prior to the Bodak Yellow joint. But I said all that to say this. Cardi B is not Tupac. And the reason for this podcast doesn't really necessarily have to do with this particular situation, but it has to do with a bigger issue. But let's just really talk real quick about what Punch from TDE was trying to say. When he said Cardi B is Tupac, he was trying to say that Cardi B is real. She's emotional. She can contradict herself in a lot of cases. And Tupac was all of those things. There's a lot of people who, fell so much in love with Tupac, even more so once he died, that they ignore the fact that he was literally probably the biggest contradiction in hip hop. But when you listen to a lot of rappers do that. Tupac kind of did it on the same album. It's a difference between a dude who comes out and he's talking about drugs and selling drugs, this, that, and the third, and maybe 4 albums later, he's telling you not to do it. That's not a contradiction. That's someone growing up. But Tupac was the type to have, you wonder why they call you bitch, and then have Keep Your Head Up, and it all be on the same album. I know those songs aren't on the same album. That's just an example. But you can definitely find some, like All About You. How about that? That's on the same album, because they're all on All Eyes on Me except for Keep Your Head Up, which is on Strictly for My Niggas. But, we acknowledge that Tupac was a contradiction in those regards. We understood that. That was kind of his flaw, so to speak. But DMX was also a dude who would contradict himself within the same album, sometimes within the same record. You know what I'm saying? He would, 1 minute, he's praying to God. Next minute, he's about to, bust your head open with a hammer or whatever. But we liked it, right? We liked it. So basically, that's all Punch was trying to say, that she is like Tupac in that regard. Now, what this podcast is about is why do we need to refer to anybody who's new and up and coming as better than or the next version of a legendary artist? Now, some may say, and they would have a valid argument, that, well, that's just what happens. People looked at Nas as the next Rakim. People looked at LeBron James as the next Michael Jordan. But that would be incorrect, because Nas's impact was so great. Yeah, you could say there was something about him that reminded you of Rakim. There's something about him that reminded you of Coogee Rap. But you never really felt like he was the next them. You felt like he's Nas. And you see that to this day. He's Nas. His name carries weight now. Same thing with LeBron James. LeBron James' skill set was never similar to Michael Jordan's. Kobe's was. So he was never really the next Michael Jordan. He was just the next huge all-time great superstar who you could compare to a Jordan, just like you can compare a Nas to Rakim. And LeBron James made his own name to the point now where you have people saying, who's the next LeBron James? You see what I'm getting at? So saying Cardi B is Tupac and saying this person reminds you of Tupac, and you know what I'm saying, like all these young cats, it just doesn't make sense. And I blame a lot of the people who are old enough to know better, because it's almost like they can't find any other reason to validate some of these hip hop artists for their skill. Because at the end of the day, skill still sits in the back of the minds of all of us. And Cardi B and any other generation would be complete trash. Like, let's not get it twisted, man. Come on, take Cardi B and put her in Lil Kim and Foxy's generation. She's getting smoked. Take it back further. Take her and put her in MC Lyte and Nicki D and Queen Latifah, Roxanne Shante. Take Cardi B and put her in that generation. She's getting smoked. So it's almost as if they can't find a definition for someone like her to validate her to a hip hop community that's going to be fickle, because I mean, real hip hop heads are not going to like Cardi B at all. They don't, because they like lyricism. And again, these are the older heads that do this. It is disrespectful to their legacy, because I hate to say it, but these people who you say are better than Tupac, better than Biggie, you know what I'm saying, or the next version of them, they couldn't hold a candle to them. They don't even have the one record where you can, match it up against Tupac's greatest record. You know what I'm saying? Biggie's greatest record. Like, these guys that you mentioned, they don't have those. They don't have iconic, timeless music. Now, it's easy for me to say that because Tupac and Biggie were like big or huge hip hop stars during my era of between high school and college. So obviously, when I was partying, when I was heavy into music, they had a heavy influence on basically being the soundtrack to my life, and a lot of people like me at different stages of their lives. So yeah, sure, it's difficult to, say anything bad about them, but I mean, I'm a pretty reasonable guy, and when I think about it, I listen to people and see what they have, and what Cardi B has isn't what Tupac has, because again, there are a lot of MCs you could come up with that are vulnerable and emotional, and even if you say, okay, well, but a lot of her traits match up with Tupac's, no, they don't, because Tupac was clearly educated. And it's not disrespectful to say Cardi B is uneducated. Just watch an interview. You can tell by her vocabulary. Now, that doesn't mean that can't change. I mean, she got money, so you can go to school in between albums. You're about to be pregnant, and honestly, all that would do is improve her as a person, improve how she views things. And more importantly, it'll improve her rhyming skills. Because now, again, we know there's some ghostwriters in there. But when it's coming from you and you have a better understanding of the world and how things work, because you seeking knowledge in different areas besides streets and the people next to you, it opens up a whole world of things. And for an MC, that's just the best. It opens up more material, because now you have another perspective to speak from. You know what I'm saying? So, the Cardi B thing is, I didn't take it that seriously, because it's Cardi B versus Tupac. Like, that's, nobody will draw that comparison. It's just something that got blown way out of proportion. It was nonsense. But it just had me thinking, because in the past you've had younger artists, typically the trap mumble rappers. They hate that tag, but it is tagged on them for sure. Now, this is your era, mumble rap era. But what they got to realize is what Biggie and Tupac brought to the game wasn't just dope music. There was a certain level of charisma and wit and knowledge and characteristics that the listener can relate to, and can relate to them at different age groups. You know what I'm saying? Like, Tupac does a song like Dear Mama. that's not a record that, only the young cats who listen to Tupac can relate to or even keep your head up. That was something that your parents would hear and be like, who's that man? It was Tupac. He good, until they hear them other records. But you don't get that from these artists. You know what I'm saying? Like, I would give mumble rappers, sorry, I'm just gonna say it, a better chance if go ahead and talk your money and your cars and stuff like that. I don't care about that, because that's a part of hip hop too. But if at least there was some moments where you really dug deep and talked about who you are, and I'm not even talking about just on the surface, like my daddy didn't love me, my daddy didn't love me, my dad. No, not that dumb shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, really, really dig deep and tell your story, even if it's on one track. Because when you do that, then people kind of understand you. They understand your hustle. They understand why you do what you do. And then there's a mutual respect there. And obviously, no one has to buy your music. But it makes it a little bit easier to do so if they like you, if they like the person, they feel like they have a connection with you as an artist. But the whole, like, even when Lonzo Ball was like, Nas is whack, he ain't real hip hop no more. Real hip hop is Future, and y'all gotta stop that. You gotta stop that. Like Lonzo Ball, right? When you say that, you know what that's like saying? That's like saying Magic Johnson ain't a legend. He's just my boss. You would never say that. So why you gotta disrespect hip hop and start saying these dudes is better than Nas? No, they're not, man. Future is not gonna be 20-some years later performing them songs in front of no damn symphony. Future is not gonna be, playing any garbled tunes at Harvard telling people about hip hop. Now, let me not say that, because just because he makes one kind of music doesn't mean the man don't know hip hop. You know what I'm saying? Because I think that's what a lot of old heads get caught up on too. They think because the certain type of music somebody makes, they think they know nothing of hip hop, because why would you make that kind of music? Because it sells. That's why they would. That's why they would make that kind of music, and maybe they hungry, or if you're from the ghetto, you hungry. You know what I'm saying? So sometimes those two don't come together properly. But those that choose to just openly disrespect legends in the game like that, they're the ones who don't know about hip hop. Because if they did, they would not utter those words. They'll just be like, yo, it's a new wave, it's a new style, it's new rappers out. And, if y'all don't like it, just go listen to your old stuff. I could take that, because it wouldn't be like they ain't lying. But what I will not stand for is disrespecting two dudes who ain't here to defend themselves, for one. And two, disrespecting two dudes who have like hits upon hits and memorable moments in hip hop and videos and songs from hardcore and introspective and storytelling. You just can't keep disrespecting these generations, man, like that. You gotta understand, you would not be able to be here to mumble on a mic if it wasn't for somebody, creating this art form. You know what I'm saying? So how can you disrespect it? Like, you might as well just be like, well, I was no damn slave, so that. You wouldn't do that, because that's your family, that's your history. You know what I'm saying? If you know your history. But we ain't gonna go that deep on this podcast. But it's one of those things where I think some of it is said to rile up the internet, maybe get some attention a couple of people's ways, even if it's hate. Just try to go there. Like, that's like with people who would say like, oh yeah, Floyd Mayweather's a genius. He got everybody to dislike him. So who the hell was Muhammad Ali? Muhammad Ali perfected that. That's why they called him the greatest of all time. Like, to me, I'm a boxing head. Sugar Ray Robinson is the greatest of all time because we talking about skill set. His skill set was better than Muhammad Ali's. And that was Muhammad Ali's idol. Muhammad Ali wanted to be like Sugar Ray Robinson. He patterned a lot of what he did after Sugar Ray Robinson. Just like Floyd Mayweather patterned, Muhammad Ali's gift to build a fight, whether he was going to win or not. He knew how to build a fight. He knew how to make you feel like, yo, I got to see this. And what people don't know is, like, back in the days, there were a lot of people, they didn't like Muhammad Ali. Like, it got to a point now where it's like, oh, the GOAT, Muhammad Ali. But a lot of people didn't like him back then because they felt like he was a loudmouth. But that's the genius. That's how he sold fights. And that's what Floyd Mayweather did. So it's kind of like, for Floyd to be the type of dude to be like, I'm more original, it would be disrespectful because it's like, nah. Yeah, you made more money than Muhammad Ali, man. It's 2018, inflation. Like, this ain't back then. This ain't the 60s and the 70s. Of course you did. But you wouldn't be able to even gain that thought of becoming the boxer people love to hate without what Muhammad Ali already did. That's what I'm saying. If you want to mumble in your raps, that's fine. But you cannot continue to disrespect the legends, the gods in the game of hip hop. You don't have to kiss their ass. You don't have to try to pattern yourself after them. All you have to do is acknowledge that, yo, these are the dudes that laid the foundation for me to be able to do my thing. And keep it moving. Because you know what that'll do? And I ain't saying this for everybody. But some old heads like to be angry at y'all. And when you do stuff like, say, you're better than Tupac, or you're the next Biggie and you're not even close to it, it's not even in the same lane, that gives them reason to be angry with you. But if you acknowledge them, you show respect, and we know, like, yo, he wasn't even born yet, or he was born when Ready to Die came out, but he respects Biggie. He knows Biggie's music. He knows Tupac's music. Then that kind of makes, people feel like, I like that young dude. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I used to go through it all the time. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm big into soul music, and not having been around during like Marvin Gaye's run or Stevie Wonder's run, but knowing their music and their history enough, people tend to look at you differently. You know what I'm saying? It means you're a music lover. And it's the same thing with hip hop. So, I mean, we could look at this whole topic as mute because obviously Cardi B is not Tupac, even for the reasons that Punch of TDE gave. It still was a loose comment, didn't really deserve an explanation in the article, because it's generic. Like, sure, she's passionate about what she does, but Tupac was passionate on a Black Panther level. She's passionate on a, I don't want these haters around. Like, it's not the same, man. There's levels to, being righteous and passionate or angry or whatever, and just being angry because that's what you used to being in the ghettos. I mean, I'm saying that's what it is. But again, this is not to bash Cardi B. It's not to bash Punch for saying what he said. This is all about just acknowledging the fact that we need to respect the legends in the game and stop trying to replace them with, artists who don't measure up to their legacy, instead of giving newer artists props for what they actually are. If you feel like Cardi B is dope, give her props for what she actually is. I can give you a couple of examples. Yeah, she's not a lyricist. So let's get that off the table, right? She's not. But she has a dope voice for hip hop. Now, me personally, I can't listen to a whole album, but she has a very unique voice, and unique voices have always been dope in hip hop. Biggie sound like he can't breathe when he rhyming. You know what I'm saying? Q-Tips is nasally. You know what I'm saying? Be Real is nasally. Like, the voices are dope, and she has that. And it kind of comes across like an old school feel when there used to be a lot of female MCs back in like the 80s. You know what I'm saying? So there's a little bit of nostalgia, at least for me, when I hear her. And sure, her lyrics aren't crazy, but if the songs are catchy enough, which they are in some cases, all of those things combine to make, you know, a dope enough artist that some people really rock with. But that don't make a Tupac. Just doesn't. Tupac is one of a kind. Biggie is one of a kind. Rakim, Nas, MC Lyte, Lil Kim, you know what I'm saying? Man, even MC Shan is one of a kind, all right? So let's just stop doing that. Stop comparing them to these hip-hop legends. Now, last week I didn't do this. Kind of forgot, but I guess I take some restrictions off. But every month we take a listener and we highlight that listener with our listener segment. And all that is you basically answer 3 questions by emailing us at vegasworld5@gmail.com. And those 3 questions being, what was your first experience with hip-hop? What's your hip-hop guilty pleasure? And who are your top 3 MCs or your top 3 albums of all time? So let's listen to this month's listener.
What up, Vegas? This is Nick doing the listener check-in real quick here. First experience with hip-hop would probably be hearing Slick Rick's children's story at my uncle's house during a cookout. And I think what intrigued me about Slick Rick was his voice, because up to that point, you know, rappers had a certain sound, and I think it was that British accent that he had that made him stand out. He just sounded different. So around that time, Slick Rick was my favorite rapper, and I think it was due to that voice that he had. Hip-hop guilty pleasure would be, I like some of this ish that most cats my age ain't supposed to like the Ray Shrimmer, some of they like, mainly because Mike Will did the beats. I think he a dope producer. Some of that Migos like, and I can't remember my name, but the dude that sing the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 M's in my bank account. That cat, I can't remember his name, but I like that. I like the hell out of that song, and I know I ain't supposed to. So, top 3 MCs of all time, I would roll with Rakim, of course, because you know you had rap before him and then rap after him. He pretty much made it hard for them cats to eat. The older cats who couldn't make that change with the move. Nas, you know, Nas is probably my favorite MC of all time, and then Andre 3000. That's my hometown hero. It made me proud to be from Atlanta. Well, you know, him and Big Boy, the first true lyricists we had coming out of the South, and they were in my area, the Southwest Atlanta part. Top 3 albums would be Low End Theory by Tribe, ATLiens by Outkast, and 93 Till Infinity by Souls of Mischief. That would be my top 3, big homie. I'm gonna talk to you later. Peace.
Remember, if you want to be heard on Hip Hop Now podcast and answer those questions, you can email me your answers at vegasworld5@gmail.com. That's vegasworld, the number 5, @gmail.com. That's going to do it for me for this week. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Vegas World INC. And please know this podcast is available via iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher Radio, Spreaker, TuneIn, Podbean, and SoundCloud.com/HipHopNow podcast. Don't forget to check out That Time in Hip Hop. All the links are in the description. There's also a video version on YouTube. But until next time, y'all, I am not a critic. I'm a fan. Peace. Drop it on the random.